Okay, new computer art tutorial going on today. What we're going to be working with is really just some basics of getting used to Photoshop and the brush menu, the fill bucket and the gradient tool, as well as some things like the layers panel, the eraser tool, and some of our selection tools. So to get started, to create kind of this abstract sort of art piece, kind of digital painting, if you will, we're going to go to File, New, and in this box I'm going to go to inches here instead of pixels, and I'm going to make the width 10 inches, and the height will be 8, and 72 resolution. Color mode RGB is fine, and for backgrounds contents, let's make that transparent. Okay, so we'll create a new project here, and you'll notice you do have this kind of checkerboard to start. What that means is that that background layer has nothing, right? It is truly transparent. If you see this grid there, you know that that is see-through. In a final image it would appear white, but we'll talk about that more as we get further into the class. So what I want to start by is selecting my paintbrush tool up in the top toolbar options. So anytime you change tools, you'll have your options bar change up here. If we click on this kind of down arrow here, you'll see you have some different options for as what you have for brushes. You may not have all this yet, but we can add them later. So you can just take whatever brush you have off the get-go. We'll go ahead and use whatever color you want to start, and we're just going to fill up this page with different kinds of brush strokes. So really just want to experiment. Again, not this first down arrow, this is for different tool presets that maybe we'll get into later, but for right now we'll just use ones that are within the program itself. If you click on this gearbox in the upper right hand corner here, you go down and you have all these different brush menus to choose from. If you want to replace the brushes, we could say OK, and it should replace all your brushes in here for new ones. You can also choose the other option, which was append, and that will kind of again create, it will add them just to the bottom of your list. So if you want to see all your old ones as well, you can do it that way. But so each time we change a brush, I'd like you to change the color. So I'm going to go to Command Z or Edit Undo, Command Z, and then I'm going to change my brush color because I want some more variety in the colors here. Again, this is kind of just an abstract drawing that we're working on. So I'm going to keep going to my brush menu here. I'll go to maybe the heavy brushes. I'll go OK, and now I have some different brushes to choose from. Going to change my color now. Try out this a little bit here. Again, go back to my brush menu. Maybe I'll keep moving up to the square brushes. Say OK. I'll look at my square brushes, change my color, and try out some square brushing. We can also just click solo if you want to click some, just see what the brush looks by itself. I'll go back into my brush menu, go special effect brushes. Let's see what we got in here. Again, we want to fill up this entire layer, so none of that grid should be showing through. Okay, I was going to special effect brushes, right? So we have some different interesting things in here, some different shapes. Okay, so that's working off a random color. Again, a special effect brush might do some interesting things in here. This is a little more like what I was hoping for from a choice of a color like that. Might go ahead and paint over some of what's going on with that butterfly. And again, it's kind of randomizing, making different shapes and things like that. Really kind of neat brush. I'm going to keep going up. Let's maybe do dry media brushes. Again, it doesn't matter what rhyme or reason you're using with choosing your brushes. Just want to get some experimentation out here with different types and effects that can be created. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Again, I want to make sure I can't see any of that grid showing down below. So that works. What we're going to do now is create a new layer over the top because everything we just brushed was all on one layer. So what we're going to do is go to our layer menu down here. You see I have a trash bin. Right next to that is this little page kind of folding over. We're going to click on that to create a new layer here. We're going to choose black, and the easy way to choose black is to click on this little icon next to your color picker here. We're going to go up to our paint bucket and fill this layer 2 with black. Now what we'll do is we're going to erase some of our black layer so that we can see our original painting underneath. So the tool I've picked for that is the Lasso Tool. The Lasso Tool, what that does is makes selections. Now again, you have some different options in your toolbar options menu up top to look at. It should probably be left on just to make a selection. What you'll notice is if you have that selected and then you go to do another one, it's going to get rid of your first one. But if I click Add To, it will let me go ahead and keep making more shapes, drawing shapes all over here and kind of keeping them going and filling up all this space with these different drawn shapes that are doing kind of this marching ant kind of thing, I call it. Okay, so drawing up all these shapes. The other thing you can do is if you want to change a shape, you can choose the Subtract From Selection tool, and I can actually go in and kind of cut away some of these shapes, or maybe make them a little different. But then I can go back to the Add To option and I can add shapes, and if they do overlap, it will add to that shape. Okay, so once you kind of have this filled up with some different kind of drawings, and they can go off the page if you want, then I'm going to just hit the delete key. And what you can see is now I can see through all those gaps into my original painting. So in order to get rid of these kind of dancing ants here, we want to go to the select menu, because these are selections. We'll go to select and we'll go down to deselect. Alright, and that will get rid of our selections and we can continue onwards. So what I'd like us to do now is go back and create a new layer again, and we're going to do the same thing we just did on that first layer. So going back to our brush menu, I'd like you to keep going through your brush menu and fill up this layer again with new brushes. Okay, so I'm going to choose a color. Let's see, maybe green. And again, I'm going to try out some different brushes here. So, and fill it up. So maybe let's go drop shadow brushes. See what this is all about. Change my color again. Maybe a darker green. And we've got kind of more of a faded edge type of brush. Okay, again, going to choose a new brush. I'd say each layer you want to fill with at least kind of like 4 to 5 brushes. So here, let's just pick another one here. I'm going to go with maybe bluish green. And again, just kind of like working on filling up all this space again, really just being loose and abstract. So I'll do one more brush. Let's see, maybe one of these kind of like more spread out spray type brushes, and maybe a darker bluish green for this one. And again, just trying to fill up the space and get some interesting texture going on here. Cool. So again, we're going to go ahead and create another new layer over the top again. So right down in this menu bar here, we will click on the new layer button. And this time, instead of filling this with the paint bucket tool, I want you to hold down on your paint bucket tool and go over to the gradient tool. And just to go over this one more time, any tool that has these little arrows in the bottom of it, that means there's other tools in there with it. So if you click and hold on them, you'll get to the option to choose between which one of those tools you want. Now, I want to create a gradient, and a gradient is this transition from one color to another. I don't want the colors to be very similar to what I have here, so I'm going to choose ones that aren't colors that I have there. If I click on this first box, and then I can click on this box here and change the color of that gradient. Maybe I'll go from a violet and then click on this box down here, click on the color box, and let's change this to maybe an orange is not a color I have there. Alright, so if I click on that, now I have this gradient made up here. If I click and drag this tool and then let go, it'll fill that layer with a gradient. Now I want to do some more erasing from this layer to kind of finish up this piece, and so what I'm going to use is, let's see, I'll take my eraser tool, and your eraser tool is this little sideways rectangle right above your gradient tool, and again, you have options. You can do all the different brushes you've done with your paintbrushes with your eraser as well. So let's see, I'm just going to use this regular brush, kind of make some lines here, and reveal my drawing that's underneath. And again, like I said, you can experiment with different brushes for this. And again, just kind of making some different lines and things with your eraser to reveal the layers underneath. The other thing we can use, last tool I want to introduce in this lesson before we call it a day, is the Marquee Tool. And this is another selection tool just like the Lasso, except it just draws shapes. So you have a rectangle, an ellipse, and single lines. So what I can do is just click and drag, and that makes a selection here. Again, you have the same add and subtract options. So if I click add to, every time these overlap, they'll kind of create a new addition to the shape. So try and create some overlap there, and then if I hit delete, that will kind of erase that shape from this layer. Again, to get a new selection going, we'll hit Command D, and then maybe take some more rectangles and hit delete a few more times. I'm going to keep them rectangles. You can experiment with ellipses too, just to kind of keep my drawing a little more consistent. As I've got kind of like these rectangular shapes going here. Maybe I'll make some really thin ones. The key to abstract work can sometimes be having a good amount of variety in your shapes. Alright, so continue playing with those around. You can actually click and change the order of your layers if you'd like to maybe bring this layer to the top. Oops, I double clicked on a layer there. Maybe play with the order of some of these a little bit and see what happens when you kind of get that going on. And see what you end up really kind of liking best here, and once you're done with your piece, we'll make sure we save it. If we go to save as, we've got a couple options. If we save this as a PSD or a Photoshop document, it will keep all our layers. If we aren't interested in keeping all the layers, we can also go down to save as a JPEG. I'm going to call this Digital Scratch. And then we can hit save. So I hope you got a good introduction to some of the tools here, and have lots of luck.